They both send orphans off on quests where they will likely die destroying objects with the Dark Lord's power inside them. They both fight against powerful dark wizards but aren't the heroes of the story. They both wear robes and have long gray beards, and they both sacrifice themselves only to reappear in the story later. But when it comes down to it, if these two wizards faced each other, who would ultimately win? Welcome back, my name is Ben, I'm the librarian, and today we're talking about Gandalf versus Dumbledore, two of the greatest wizards of all time, and who would win if they met. Now, to Tolkien fans, I think the answer probably comes off as being really obvious. They think, well, Gandalf is a Maya, and a Maya is basically like a god or an angel, and so there's probably no way in this world that he could be defeated by a human sorcerer like Dumbledore. Except we do have an example of Gandalf having a problem with a human sorcerer in the Witch King of Angmar. Now granted, by the time that we see them meet in The Lord of the Rings, the Witch King of Angmar has been greatly enhanced through his ring and being invested with power by Sauron. So that is a little bit different, but he still is a human sorcerer at the end of the day. And Dumbledore himself has access to some really powerful magic. At least at the beginning of the series, he has access to the Philosopher or Sorcerer's Stone, which will give him immortality if he wants it. So he could get there, just like the Witch King of Angmar. So I don't know if it's as clear and cut and dry as all of that. Even though Gandalf is a Maya, Gandalf isn't really allowed to use the full strength and power of a Maya in his role as Gandalf in Middle-earth. With a question like this, a lot of it depends on when they would meet, because if you look at Gandalf in The Hobbit, he's a lot weaker than he is in The Lord of the Rings, particularly post-resurrection Gandalf, Gandalf the White, who comes back much stronger and much more powerful. Whereas Dumbledore starts off very, very powerful, but by the time we get to book 6, because he's put the cursed ring on his hand and is now basically crippled by that and on his way to death, he is not nearly so powerful. So it really depends on when these two might meet, what might happen between them. So for our purposes, let's pretend that they're both meeting at the end of the 5th book in their series. Now you might be like, there aren't 5 books in The Lord of the Rings, but if you break it down and you count The Hobbit, there's actually 7 books in The Lord of the Rings because each volume is 2 books. And there are 7 books in Harry Potter, so this works out quite well. We'll take the end of the 5th book for each of them. This gives us Gandalf post-resurrection, so he's Gandalf the White, and it gives us Dumbledore before he puts the ring on and becomes crippled. So they're both basically at the heights of their powers at the end of the 5th books in their series. So then I said, let's take a look at 5 categories and see who would win in each of them. Those categories are gear, magic, followers, familiars, and methods. Now obviously with anything like this is going to be a really objective exercise, and it's going to kind of come down to my opinion of things. So I do want to hear from you in the comments down below what you think about each of these things. So first off, gear. Now Gandalf has his wizard staff, his sword, Glamdring, which is one of the swords from Gondolin that, you know, glows brightly when orcs are near and is a really powerful elvish blade. And then he has the ring Narya, which is the Ring of Fire, one of the 3 great elven rings. On the other hand, we have Dumbledore. Dumbledore possesses the Elder Wand as his magical instrument. He also has a sword at this point, the Sword of Gryffindor, and he also has an interesting trinket that he keeps in his pocket, the Deluminator, which has the ability to put out all the lights in an area. So ultimately, when it comes down to gear, I think we have to give this one to Gandalf. It seems like a staff is better than a wand. I'm pretty sure Glamdring is just going to destroy the Sword of Gryffindor in a duel. And as cool as the Deluminator is, Narya seems like it's going to be a lot more valuable for him. So let's give this one to Gandalf. Next, let's talk about magic. Now this is tricky because magic is very different in these two worlds. They function really, really differently. And magic in the wizarding world tends to be a lot more flashy than magic in Middle-earth. Although if you look at all the magic in Middle-earth, Gandalf's magic is the most flashy, but you know, Dumbledore seems to know pretty much every spell that is in existence in the wizarding world. Now, there are some of them which he probably would never use. I think we can feel pretty confident that he's not going to use an unforgivable curse, although Harry did. But Dumbledore probably not, but he knows a lot of spells. He's got a lot of magic at his disposal. Gandalf, on the other hand, we see use magic less directly most of the time. There are a few instances where we can see his magic in action. It's almost always light or fire-based. With this one, it is hard, but I think we gotta give it to Dumbledore. I mean, Dumbledore seems to know a lot more spells that are going to help him in a fight than Gandalf seems necessarily to be able to utilize, so let's give it to Dumbledore. Next, we have followers. So Gandalf starts out with the Fellowship of the Ring, which is kind of a mismatched group of heroes that he takes on a journey. They have one fatal flaw, and that's Boromir, so not necessarily the best, but by the time we get to the end of the Two Towers, what we find is Gandalf has the three hunters, so Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn. He's also got two of the hobbits left, Merry and Pippin. Pippin may be more of a liability than anything else. Then he also has groups like the Riders of Rohan, the Ents, and soon after the Two Towers, so they're kind of in proximity, he's going to have groups like the Rangers of the North and the Knights of Gondor. He also has kind of an ace in the hole where it seems like the Eagles are pretty reliably going to come in and help anytime there's a crisis. So that's Gandalf's side with his followers. On Dumbledore's side, he has the Order of the Phoenix, a powerful group of wizards, and Dumbledore's army, a powerful group of wizard kids. When you look at these two, it seems to be pretty balanced in Gandalf's favor. Even though Dumbledore has a lot more magic users on his side, Gandalf just straight up has more power. He's got people like Aragorn, and he's got Ents and Eagles. There's a lot going on there. So probably Gandalf in terms of followers. Then we have familiars. Familiars are the animal that a wizard or witch relies on to help them in their work. Dumbledore has a pretty awesome familiar in the form of Fawkes the Phoenix. And Fawkes has a lot of powers, like he can fly, and not only can he fly, he can carry others with him. He can carry great loads. He has some kind of fire magic, and he also has tears that can heal, and a powerful song. That's Fawkes. On the other side, we have Gandalf. Gandalf has Shadowfax. Shadowfax is probably the fastest known horse in history. He can cover vast distances very quickly, and Gandalf seems to be able to summon him even sometimes from far, far away. Now, it pains me to say this, but as awesome as Shadowfax is, it just seems like a Phoenix is going to help you out more in a fight, particularly those healing powers. The fact that they can both transport you, the Phoenix just seems to come with more. So we've got to give this one to Dumbledore, which brings us to the last category, the methods. Now, both of these wizards use really similar methods. They both rely on orphans to carry out the task that most needs to be done to defeat the Dark Lord, and they rely on abstract concepts like love and hope to really carry the day. And ultimately, they are both successful in bringing about the downfall of the Dark Lord through these methods, which look a little shaky at first blush. So when it comes down to methods, I don't think we can choose a winner here. It really seems to be a draw. And unfortunately, where that leaves us is a draw between them, with each of them having 2 points. So at the end of this video, I'm afraid we haven't answered the question. It still seems like a draw between Gandalf and Dumbledore. But now, of course, I want to hear from you. Is there a category that I missed? Do you disagree with my decision in one of the categories? Who do you think would win if it came down to Gandalf versus Dumbledore? And until next time, thank you so much for watching. Farewell wherever you fare. May your Eries receive you at your journey's end.